So good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning. Welcome to the customer showcase. This recording is going live. So we appreciate you joining us. This morning I have two esteemed guests, Dale Hassinger, who will be showing you some unique ways to deal with capacity management and planning. And Dan Grove, who will be talking to us about deeper insights into your virtual infrastructure environment using the True Visibility Suite. So with that, I also wanted to let everyone know that we'll be having another customer showcase the second week of July, after the July 4th holiday. And we are looking for two additional customers who might have something interesting to share with us then. But all that being said, I am going to turn the ball over to Dale. So Dale, I'm going to stop sharing. And would you please take over? Dale, you're on mute, just to be clear.
Do you see my screen okay?
We can see your screen and we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, what I wanted to do was to talk about right-sizing with vRealize operations. So out of the box, there is a way that you can go through, and if you go down to the right-sizing, if you go home, right-sizing, you can kind of pick your clusters and stuff. And when you come down into here, it'll show your VMs and it'll say, all right, here's how many CPUs you have allocated, and here's how much we recommend that you take away. And one of the problems that I run into is when you show this to an app owner, they're always like, why should I take these CPUs away? I mean, VRops does a really good job of telling you how to right size, but to actually put some numbers behind why you should take CPU or memory away, or also add. In addition to taking away, you will see that they recommend that sometimes that you need to add resources. So what I'm going to show you is a dashboard that I came up with to show the information that you can give to an app owner and say, this is why you need to take CPUs or memory away, or maybe even add. So if you look at this dashboard up here, I can pick all my clusters. And there's a lot of data to show here, but like on this first one, I'm showing like CPU remove, CPU add, whether hot adds enabled, how many sockets. And one number that, or one metric that isn't really included out of the box that I turned on, and I'll show you how to do that later, is the ready time that the VM was waiting to actually get access to the CPU. So you can see like this one, for an example, has a lot of CPU cores, but vRops is saying, hey, take 16 away from that to do the right sizing. And then as you look down through these ones that are really high on the ready times in milliseconds, you can see that they're all being recommended to take CPU away. And some of them are also good. Like here's one that says, hey, you need to take some CPU away, but the ready time's kind of okay. And that's where, in addition to showing all these metrics, I'm also showing which host it's on. I'm showing the current CPU usage. So in addition to right sizing, I do use this same dashboard for performance. So if I scroll down, so like this top one, when that shows, hey, you really need to take CPU away. If we scroll down, I also have a screen that says, all right, that's on my #1 server. So if I come down here and look, I can then, without having to go between all the different dashboards, I tried to make it that I can stay on this one single dashboard. It says, all right, here's how many cores and sockets, here's the total VMs. And I can start looking at, what's the ready time on the host itself so that I can see things. And then in addition to the memory, if you scroll to the right, or the CPU is on the left, I'm also showing memory. Do I need to add memory? And some of these VMs are showing that, or take memory away. And to show you an example of what happens when you take CPU away, I'm going to show you one server here. I have a server that I'm in charge of, that I used all the recommendations of vRealize. So it says, hey, you should be at 9 CPU, 9 cores, single socket, and everything is looking good. Now that one is currently showing a little higher on the ready time. And what I've noticed is if it's on a server, which is why I'm showing that, that is also has some other very big VMs, then your ready time can kind of go up. And that's where, if you do the right sizing across the board, you'll get much better performance because of sharing the resources. So if you look at this server, I'm going to come down to the metric for the ready time in milliseconds. And let's go back 30 days. When I turn that metric on, I'm going to show you what happens. So this is when I turned that metric on. And if I zoom in on that day, let's make this a little bit bigger. So this line right here is 1,000 milliseconds. So that server was pretty consistent above 1,000 milliseconds, and that's when it had 12 CPU. So vRealize said, hey, you should really make it 10 at that time. And after I made it 10, the last week or so, it actually said, take another one away and make it 9. So after I changed it to 10, you can see that the ready time definitely is much lower numbers, and we're getting a better performance out of that.
Dale,
Yes.
if I might interrupt for 1 second. For those who've joined late, that's my bad. For some reason, I set it up with having to do approval requests. So to that end, please accept my humble apologies. Thank you for joining anyway. The second piece is the use case that you're coming into a little bit late, just to catch you up. Frequently, many of you take a look at the capacity planning, where you see that certain VMs or certain hosts have too many CPU or not enough CPU, and you want to create some relevance behind that. What Dale has done here is to create that set of dashboards, a set of views, if you will, to establish a baseline as to why. So Dale, if you could just catch us up quick,
Sure.
that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah. So with this dashboard, well, we can come back here. I showed this. We're out of the box. It shows right sizing, and they give you recommended sizes, how many you should take away, or if you click on the undersize, it'll also show you how many you should add. But my main goal with creating this dashboard was to go to an app owner and say, this is why you need to be able to take these numbers away. Because one thing that, like if I own a vehicle that has a V8 engine and the mechanic says, hey, you should really make that a 4-cylinder, you're going to get better performance, I'm not going to believe him, because you're taking half my engine away from me. How am I going to get the same performance? So that's where this dashboard that I created shows why. So instead of just saying, hey, this is what vRealize really wants you to do, I wanted to put some real numbers behind that. So if you start looking at some of these VMs, you can see this one has 32, and vRealize is saying, hey, you should really take 16 away. I'm looking at the past history, and you're way oversized. Or you look here, it's 20, and you should take 10 away. And then I'm showing, the ready time. I'm showing if there's contention. I'm showing the usage, average usage. So like this one here, where it's 10 and there's or 20 CPU, and they're saying take 10 away. If you look here to the left, it's like, yeah, I'm barely using that server. And then when it reached the highest point of CPU usage, I'm even showing the date. So that way I know, hey, is this happening every day, or when did it happen? Maybe it's only once a week. So I kind of give that information. I show which host it's running on. But then in addition to in addition to CPU, if you scroll to the right, it also does a really good job of right-sizing memory. So it says, hey, you should take memory away or add it. And what's interesting with some of these charts I added at the top, as you click on the different servers, these performance charts, when like this server here, it showed the lowest that server ever was at on the ready time is 462, but it's gone up as high as 9,000 milliseconds. And each 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second. So there's been times that server has waited 9 seconds just to be able to get access to the CPU. And when I explain to an app owner those numbers, they seem to understand that better. Out of the box, vRealize will show you the percentage that it's weighted for ready time. But if you can actually show them a real number like this, I think it helps them understand. So that's the right sizing. So this is what I did here is you can pick each cluster. And some thoughts that I had was, if you want to make a dashboard for an application team specific, I kind of did the same thing. So this is all the servers that I'm responsible for every day. So I took that same view that I'm showing in the other one, which is based on a cluster. Now this one is based on a grouping of tags within vCenter. So it's just all my vRealize stuff, but I'm showing the same data. So me as an app owner, I can come in here and look and see, hey, how am I doing on right sizing? How is my ready time, or how's my performance? Or if I scroll to the right, it's really the same chart to show all that right sizing information. And one thing that I wanted to kind of show people too is in addition to right sizing, there is a fling out there for optimizing that you can run against your vCenter that it looks at the current settings and shows you, here's how many CPU you have, and this is how you have it configured. And this is the data that gets exported out of that. So that one server that was really high, you can see that it's really there again. Even the optimizing tool is saying you should really do 16. And then it also shows you how many cores you should do, how many CPUs. It does a good job at that.
Hey, Dale, this is Brock Peterson. Quick question.
Sure.
Are either of these dashboards up on VMware Code, or do you have plans to share them?
That's something we could talk about. I have no problem putting some of this dashboards out there. That I want to make sure that if I give it to somebody, that it makes it easy to import. So I'd have to include a couple of the views in addition to the dashboard.
Yeah, yep. I think, I mean, these are really, really nice. So, I think I like how they're laid out. I like how simple you've made them. I mean, clearly there's a view and some underlying things here, but
yep, couple views included.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think it'd be worthwhile. So, we're getting some feedback around the dashboard. So if you have the ability to put them up on VMware Code and you're open to it, I think it'd be a great idea.
Sure. And if people want to see some stuff that I've done, I mean, here's my contact information. I wanted to make this all demo, no slides, but here's my website. If you'd want to go out and look at it, I actually did a blog post on how I created it and how I added that metric. So if anybody wants to go look at this information, I do put stuff out there every now and then.
And I'll share everything. I'll share everything on Microsoft Teams as well.
Okay.
But Dale, great job as always. Very excited by the stuff you bring to the table. One of the things that, just to give Dale props. One of the things that Dale does amongst not just the local community, but anyone who asks, he's always willing, and I don't mean to sign you up for this, but he is always willing to lend a helping hand. People have questions and things like that. He's just been, one of the Power Block team members from the start. So thank you for that. So
Sure.
Dale, if you could
Stop
stop sharing, and we're going to
Yep.
pass the baton to Dan Grove. Dan, feel lucky to have you today, and thank you for willing to share. Thank you, Rob Mitchell, for allowing this to happen. But anyway, I'm going to turn the ball over to you, Dan.
Yeah,
Welcome.
so audio is okay and you're seeing my screen okay?
Yeah, seeing your screen, audio is great. Thank you for doing this morning.
Yeah, so absolutely. First thing I wanted to do was just thank you and your team, Steve. I appreciate the opportunity for giving me the chance to speak today. I think what you guys do with the Power Block community and sharing information amongst that community is awesome. So to be a part of that is a good thing. So thank you for that. So as Steve mentioned, he brought me on board today to talk about True Visibility Suite. To give a little bit of background information on WellSpan, we bought TVS, formerly known as Blue Medora, I want to say 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. The reason we did that and what was appealing to us was the visibility that it gave us into the full stack. And by that, I mean, when you're searching on a specific object, the objects and metrics that TVS brings into the mix gives you much more insight into your environment. Historically, we've had individual tools that give us the same information. So for instance, if we're looking at Citrix, we would use Studio or maybe Director. If we're looking at SQL, we'd use a tool maybe like Idera or Management Studio. Similarly for storage, we're a 3-part shop. So we could use the SSMC to look at storage metrics, but we never had the ability to do that from a single console. TVS gives us that, and that was really appealing to us. So today I'm going to share 4 ways, 4 use cases that WellSpan uses to sort of display the power and what TVS gives you. The first of those things is going to be not a dashboard, but the troubleshooting workbench. So I can't remember when the workbench came out. I want to say it was like 8 or 8.1. But from the get-go, I always thought it was a powerful tool to use. As an engineer, you get that call come across your desk where it's super generic. My VM is slow. And this is a great place to start that troubleshooting effort, to find that needle in a haystack, to figure out what could this issue be? Could it be VMware related? Could it be storage related? And the workbench out of the box gives that to you. When you add TVS to the mix, it just expands that visibility tenfold and gives you more visibility into your environment. So I have a queued up search here for XDA SQL 1. It's one of our Citrix SQL servers. And as I mentioned, out of the box, Workbench is going to give you events, property changes, and anomalous metrics. And kind of going over the layout here along the left-hand side, typically, if you didn't have TVS, you would see basic objects here where you would see your VM and any relationships up and down that tree. Currently, I have it fully zoomed out. And you can see that it brings in those TVS objects, those objects that are brought in when you install the Citrix management pack or the SQL management pack. So in this case, when we set focus on our SQL server, you're seeing objects related to the 3-part CPG down to the SSD level. We're seeing virtual volumes related to that SQL server. We're seeing SQL database information, SQL instance information. If I scroll down, you'll see physical information about where that VM would live in our Synergy infrastructure and in those enclosure groups. So you can quickly see how powerful it becomes by coming into sort of a one-stop shop to try to pinpoint where the issue might be. It could be VMware, it could be hardware. And before, we're kind of scurrying between 4 or 5 different utilities. Now it's brought into one location, and we thought that was extremely useful and powerful. One other good way to sort of display, represent that object relationship is in your scoping in the top left corner. If you click on custom, you can see this, and this might be small for you guys to view, but you can see all these relationships that are brought in, and many of them are out of the box, but a lot of them are brought in with TVS. You can see sort of in this lower right corner, we're bringing in the SQL information. The central location here, you're seeing one view and where, you know, physical information about it. Lower here, you're seeing the SSD and what the 3-part management pack is giving us. So, you know, not a dashboard, but still a use case that we use on a regular basis. It helps us to, you know, pinpoint issues and you know, start root cause analysis for things we come across. So that's the first thing. The other 3 things are dashboards that we created. So WellSpan is an Epic shop. We use Citrix for presentation to our end users. This dashboard was built out of the need to show the number of servers we have in maintenance mode in our Citrix environment. And by maintenance mode, I don't mean vSphere maintenance mode, I mean Citrix maintenance mode. So we never want to put ourselves in a situation where our Citrix delivery groups don't have enough resources or servers in them to properly broker sessions to our end users. We've been in that situation once or twice before. So it grew into the idea of, hey, let's see if we can build a dashboard to show this. And by using the Citrix management pack from TVS, we were able to do that using some simple math and supermetrics. So you can see in the lower left-hand corner, we have 6 major delivery groups in Citrix, 4 Epic, 3 prod, 3 non-prod. And currently you can see there's some that are actually in maintenance mode now. And the reason our techs put things in maintenance mode is they do periodic maintenance like patching, or they'll do PVS maintenance against the servers. So this constant state of flux, and we never really had a good way to make that visible and consumable by people who aren't Citrix admins. And this kind of gives us that ability. Some other things not related to that percentage in this dashboard, I'll just kind of go over it here. Top left, we replicate Epic between 2 major data centers that we have. So this is just kind of telling you where things live. Caches at one data center, reports in another, salt banks in another. Top right, we're showing prod count versus non-prod count, total session count there. In the central portion here, I'm using some donut charts to show those 6 major delivery groups, 3 prod, 3 non-prod. And I always love to use the donut charts because it's a real clean, professional way to show data, but I love the fact that you can kind of click through these and filter the data. And if you choose to kind of drill down into that part of the pie and dig into that that specific data. So a real clean way to display information. And then in the lower corner, this is just a historical view of our total session count. Right now it's set to dashboard time. So you can, you know, choose 7 days. If we wanted to, we could, you know, zoom out to maybe 30 days. And you can kind of see the ebbs and flows of you know, where our busy times are, where users are logging in, launching Epic, getting into the environment, and then you can kind of see where the weekends hit and the slow periods hit. That, you know, that session count obviously drops down. So this one was a big win for us.
Hey, Dan, there was a question of, are you running Epic on-prem or hosted?
On-prem. Yeah, so we use, and my storage guys on the call, but probably can't speak, but we use 3-part peer persistence and storage replication to replicate that data between 2 data centers. And we're once a quarter, we flip that back and forth. So it'll run live for a quarter out of one data center. And then when we flip it over, it'll run live out of the other data center. And this little widget in the top right is just a quick layman's view of where things are running. And you know, this dashboard will update regardless of what data center things are running out of. So yeah, this was a big win for us. So next one I want to show, something I thought maybe some engineers out there could relate to. vRops is really good out of the box in showing storage metrics and statistics for what I refer to as like traditional storage. So data stores, you know, VMDKs, volumes, things like that. Out of the box, it's great at. It's not so great at using at showing metrics for RDMs. And because we're an Epic shop and Epic likes to use raw disk mappings for several of their systems, we thought it'd be a good idea to create a dashboard that would give us the ability to look at storage stats for that stuff. So this is displaying that. We had to utilize vSphere tagging for the selection list on the left. And then out of the box, the 3-part management pack for TVS didn't include this, but we were able to create manual relationships between the tagged VMs and the volumes that we know are raw disk mappings. And then once we created that relationship, then we could easily display it in a dashboard format. And again, this is selection driven. You select your VM. It's going to display the raw disk mappings associated with that VM. Now, some of these, you'll see the lowercase r here, and they don't have any statistics. So these are replicated volumes. But if I scroll down, some of these are live volumes, and you can see that now when I select that, I'm seeing the average latency in this select an RDM widget, but then it also updates this chart that shows latency stats, as well as like IO, there's throughput in here. And I think this is just kind of the canned XML file that 3-part gives you as part of that management pack. So sort of binding that XML to this metric chart gives you these common stats that I think storage admins would want to see. So we just set it to that, and we could update it with whatever we really wanted to. Lastly, for this dashboard, what we did, and something that I like to do, is anytime I'm creating a dashboard, I like to add some color into it, because, you know, if you're handing these dashboards out to people who aren't subject matter experts, you know, we all know green is good, red is bad. So this is a good way for your eye to focus on something that may be an issue. So at a glance, you look at the dashboard, I'm seeing one of these volumes may have a latency issue, and you can quickly, you know, see that and focus and drill down on that, and then get the necessary parties involved or start troubleshooting, whatever it may be. So this was another good way that without TVS, we wouldn't have the ability to, without the native storage tools, to look at some of these stats. So this was a big one for us as well. The last one I'm going to show you is not a dashboard that we built from the ground up. This was an out-of-the-box dashboard that came with the SQL management pack with TVS. This was a use case where we needed to spin something up very quickly. So we do have many SQL servers, but we outsource that support to a third party. And those technicians have their own tools that they use to troubleshoot, whether that's Idera or other. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. But a use case came up where they needed supplemental information from us, from any tools that we had in-house, to sort of validate some things that they were seeing on their end. So what I was able to do was just use, and this process was super quick, use an out-of-the-box dashboard that came with the SQL management pack with TVS, clone it, and then filter the selection list down to the pack's SQL servers involved in this, and then quickly share that out to a URL, send an email off, and then they had access to this. So it was a quick way to sort of prove out that they had a page life expectancy issue. It backed up the data that they saw with their tools, and then we were able to adjust some resources to address the issue. So I thought this was a good use case to show, just to show everyone that you don't necessarily always have to build these super elaborate dashboards. I mean, they're great. There's tons of data that you can display, but there are quick wins that you can get, and you can do them, you know, on the spur of the moment, just by cloning some canned dashboards out of the box, and then quickly tailoring them to your needs. So this one is a good one to show. I'm not a SQL DBA by any stretch of the imagination, but this, if you just kind of glance over this, is showing you some super good information about any particular SQL Server's environment. Their server weights, it's showing you SQL Server's CPU and memory stats. You know, this dashboard showing server queries. There are others that get granular to the point where you can actually see the syntax of the query and how long it may be running. And if it's a runaway query and it's taking X amount of resources and bringing the SQL Server to its knees. You know, this one you're seeing historical database transactions over time that you can adjust, and then just high level VMware health towards the bottom here. One other thing to mention about this, and that I always thought was kind of funny, when working with Blue Medora a few years back when we set this up, they would always call this dashboard the Idera killer. So any DBAs in the audience that have used Idera know that it's a great tool, and it delves into your SQL environment and allows you to manage and troubleshoot it really well. They always called it the Idera killer, this dashboard, because it had a lot of the same stats and metrics that Idera could show you. I think the only difference being that vRops would be more near real time, where I think Idera is more of a real time representation of that, but still super good information to show here. And it was, you know, a one-off use case that worked really well for us. So Steve, that's all I have. Thanks again for letting me talk.
Hey, Dan, one question was being asked is, are you running Citrix on ESXi or on Zen Server?
ESXi.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, so Dan, thank you very much. You did an excellent job. You do an excellent job. For those, you know, those of you who like what you've seen and you want, you know, more information, you want to delve into it further, please reach out to us either on the team site or directly. Your PowerBlock team, Christopher, Brock, Carl, Cosman, Jason, myself, and Nathan, and Brad, Stephen, and Brian are happy to help in any way we can. But to that end, I appreciate everybody for hanging in there with us. I want to take the time to wish you a wonderful upcoming July 4th holiday weekend. I think for most of us, it's the first time we're all going to be able to get out and about and enjoy the weather. So thanks again for joining us. As I said, next month, we're going to do another customer showcase, working on some things now. I appreciate your attendance and your patience. We'll have the recording up for those who couldn't attend or those you'd like to share it with in an hour or two. With that, I wish everyone a wonderful weekend. Thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for joining us as always. Thank you for being part of the PowerBlock community. Dale, Dan, special thanks to you. Very much appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Cheers. Have a great weekend, everyone.